for death. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Only just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna light it up. Tonight, we're gonna light it up. Tonight, we're gonna light it up. Just like the sunrise, we're gonna light it up.
Welcome to the HVAC Guide live show where we talk about all things HVAC. My name is Josh and we will be answering your questions live. I've got a guest tonight. We'll be bringing him on in just a moment. Sometimes we are joined by other pros in the chat who might know answers to questions that I don't. Let's be honest, that's not hard. A couple people were pointing that out in the comment section this week. They were quite brutal, if I'm being honest. I almost cried. Tonight, we will be having a special guest who is an expert in our industry. But before we bring on Luke, let's take a moment for a few housekeeping matters. First of all, I will be back next week as just about every week. I say just about because sometimes life happens, but we'll be back next Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. So if you are not a regular and you like seeing this chubby face on your screen, I'll be back next week. Also, if you wouldn't mind, take a moment to hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed, obviously, please do that as well. We're always coming out with new HVAC tips. I've got an awesome video hitting Thursday, pretty explosive video. If I do say so myself, it's some pretty crazy news coming out. But make sure you hit that subscribe button. All that said, let's take a moment before we get the show started to pay the bills and thank the sponsor of tonight's show. Tonight's guest is an expert in the HVAC industry. He has over 25 years of HVAC. I can't talk tonight, Luke. Bear with me. He has over 25 years of HVAC experience in the trade. He's the founder of a company called Heat and Air Gurus, serving the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area, while also running a unique YouTube channel called HVAC Double Agent, where he gives homeowners advice and insider knowledge to help them understand HVAC decisions and say goodbye to unnecessary expenses. Finally, he's NATE certified. He holds a degree in applied science for air conditioning and refrigeration. He's someone that I personally call a friend. Everyone, please welcome Luke Barbosa. Let's go.
How's it going, Josh? Honored
How
to
are
be
you
on
doing?
here tonight.
I like the glasses.
Appreciate it. Hey, you got some too.
Mine don't have lenses in them, but it's I have them sitting here because the video I have coming out on Thursday, I have an alter ego in the video and I put glasses on it, you know. So
I'm
there you
looking
go.
forward to seeing that.
Well, good enough. Well, if you wouldn't mind, I know we've gotten to know each other. You actually are one of the guys that you joined our mastermind on our website, and you always bring really good knowledge. And I've always just been really impressed with some of the things that you're doing in your business. But yeah, just maybe kind of start from the beginning. You know, tell us how this all got started and how you got here.
Well, Josh, I'm an SOB, so that's the son of a boss.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah. I was born into the industry. I got to give credit to the SOB where credit's due. That's not mine. That's from the late Rob Flake from National Comfort Institute. I heard that from one of his classes one time, and I've stole it ever since. So yeah, I started out in the industry, junking coils and stuff when I was 8-year-old kid. My dad was probably breaking child labor laws. I always swore working with him in the summers and stuff that I'm never going to do this type of work. I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer, just office job, right? And here I am. Look at me now. Right out of high school, went to technical school and got my degree, and then worked for him for the first 15 years of my career. Moved to Chicago and worked there a few years. Came back here and ended up starting up my own thing.
I think that it opens the door to an interesting question. Why do you think? Because there are kids out there. I was one of them. I said I'll never do what my parents do, and that's a whole nother topic because they were not involved in the trades in any way. So I was pretty stubborn. I definitely did not end up doing what they did. But why do you think that changed? Like if you were at the age of 8 and you said no way, but by the time you were an adult, you said yes way. What happened?
Absolutely, the paychecks, baby. It was the money. When I was a 16-year-old kid, I was able to pay cash for my car.
Wow.
That, and then I was like, I can go get in student debt like the rest of my buddies, or I can start making money in 2 years with an associate's degree in applied science.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think that I think folks are coming around, especially because of the internet and different shows where they highlight things like what you're talking about. But our industry is kind of come a long way because I do remember there were times as a kid where going in doing some sort of blue collar work may have been frowned upon. And I don't think that's the case anymore. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there for folks that want to work hard.
Absolutely. I think you get the occasional customer that frowns upon it here and there, but what can you do?
What can you do? That's right.
Can't win them all.
That's right. That's right. Let's see. Brian says, I hired a work hero. Would you like to interview them? I don't know what that is. What is that? Work hero.
Beats me. Work hero. Maybe he's a hardworking hero. Is that?
No, I think it's a company. Brian, I think you have my number. If you don't, email me after this and we'll talk. But yeah, I just think that that's really good. I know I have some friends that are college educated and they do very well, right? But I also have some friends that they don't even use their degree at all. Like they end up doing something totally different. And I've had several friends say to me, man, I wish I would have gone the path that you did. Grass is always greener, right? But like you said, they end up, I could say my wife does use, in fact, my wife is our sponsor of our show tonight. She owns Millstone Bookkeeping, but, she uses her degree, but I do know when we met, she had a pile of student debt, a pile of, and that's something I never had to deal with, going to trade school. So looked like you were about to say something. So that's why I
Yeah, I was, but it left me.
Okay, gotcha. I like the cup.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I think back to the workforce though. It's still tough to find good people. We are doing a better job. I think we are included in that, promoting that it is a lucrative, career. Is it hard work? Absolutely. There's no denying that. But hard work
Yeah.
brings good paychecks.
So I happen to know a little bit about your story. I don't think I know your full story, but I do know that, your dad owns a business, but you have started your own business. You're not one of those spoon-fed, no offense to people, to second generation business owners, but no one's handing you anything. You've gone out and started your own business now.
Correct. Yes. And there was not even any pull from Dad's business. I moved away for 5 years and pretty much got out of the market, forgotten about, and then came back into it starting from scratch. Because I think that was one of my biggest hesitations, Josh, just for a long time was, I can't compete against my dad. I can't, what would that do to the family? All this internal conflict in me for a long time. And finally, I talked to him first about 6 months before I started my company. I said, hey, Pops, I don't see you retiring from your place anytime soon. You love what you do. You love coming in every day. It's like, how would you feel if I started my own company? He gave me my blessing. He gave me his blessing. It's been a really cool thing, actually, for the whole family.
Yeah. I'm sure he's proud of you. Whether
Right.
I don't know him. I don't know how warm I know my dad wasn't always the warmest growing up, but I'm sure he's proud of you, no doubt. I mean, it's takes guts. So
Yeah, it does.
Let's see, a couple questions. Cap and Jack says, how much investment is required to become an HVAC tech? Schooling costs. I think that I'd love to hear your answer on that, Luke, because you're in a different area. But in my area, the answer is zero, and to at least get started. And then there are some trade schools that I know when Biden was in office, they were putting some programs in place to help folks with schooling. So it was like, I don't want to say it was free, but it was free. And
I mean, you could find any company. If you find, if I found the right high school kid right now, I would pay for his college tomorrow to become a technician. It's all about investing in the right people for the future and everything. But yeah, that's basically what happened to me. Yes, it was my pops, but he paid for my college while I interned with him too, because there was an intern throughout those couple years as well.
I mean, I think so. The way I got started was the trade school I went to was not, there was no HVAC class. So I didn't even know what HVAC stood for at the time. And so I went to school to be an electrician, which I'm thankful for today because I use a lot of what I learned in our trade, where a lot of guys know how to build a beautiful duct transition. And you don't want to see me to do that. But they might fall short on the electrical side. I'm very thankful that I have that. But when I was in high school, there was this like half a day program. So I did that for my junior and senior year. That was free. And then after I graduated and I got my first job at an electrical company, I was going to night classes. And I don't remember how much they were, but they were very inexpensive. And in comparison, I'm wanting to say, of course, everything's got more expensive, but I'm wanting to say back then it was a few $100 for like 6 or 12 2-hour classes or something. You'd go every week on a Wednesday night. And the company that I worked at, if you got a good grade and you could prove that it was a trade related class, then they would reimburse you. They wouldn't pay for it up front, but if you got good grades and you were doing, they weren't going to pay for it up front and then you skip it, and you're not going.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's a long answer to a short question.
Well, I know there's some places around here too that have like a 6-week crash course test, like here's the basics kind of things, that could give you a foundation if you're going in as like a maintenance tech or a hand of a, an apprentice with another guy or something like that, possibly, or gal. Lots of gals out there too nowadays.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt. Yep. Brian says, "What does this man do?" Uh, well, I feel like you do what I do, but in a different way. Like you own a heating and air business. You also do YouTube videos, but in your way, like your style. So it's there's some parallels there on what we both do. I feel
For
like.
sure. I think we both try to almost regulate the HVAC industry. We try to make sure you're not getting hosed by a lot of the fly by night guys and the big companies that have terrible, culture and installs and everything else to go with it with a really high price tag. So I think that's, my mission really in life is use my skill to help others, share what I know. It was all given to me by somebody else.
I tell you, when I first started out, that was not my goal. I don't know if it was yours, but when I made my first YouTube video, it was supposed to just complement my business. It was just a yet another social media platform. But then I crossed paths with a customer who said, so and so just left my house, that company, and they said so and so brand is the best. And I remember walking out of their house, sitting at the end of their driveway with my cell phone out, recording a video and saying, just because somebody says that brand is best, don't make it true.
Right.
And then that's when it all started. That's when I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to be hard on other folks in our industry if they're going to lie to people.
So what got me started was I was working for one of the third largest HVAC or plumbing and air conditioning companies in the nation. And just, it was disgusting is the best way I could describe it. What they charged, their processes, their systems. And it really just reignited the fire under me to A, what to look out for out there, and B, it's time to start my own company and start doing right by folks where I can.
That's pretty noble. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard you tell me that before. So that's interesting.
Yep.
Let's see. Captain Jack says, what's the cost to go out on your own and to leave your dad's business? I would imagine it's quite an investment. What's the greatest cost? Employees, insurance, vehicles, equipment?
Oh, well, employee would definitely be the greatest because it encompasses most of what is in there. As far as leaving dad's business, it wasn't I'll put it to you like this. I was working out in the field, turning wrenches with Pops. When I left his business, I went to Chicago and I was a salesman. I was a full-time commission salesman who didn't carry any tools. I carried a laptop, iPad. So I actually did less work and made more money. So it was actually good for me to go up there for a while.
Awesome. Yeah. I know I've told this story before on here. My first big investment for my company was I didn't have enough money to buy a van. So I had this Jeep Wrangler and I went and bought this. I took what little money I had. And I remember I went and sold a couple things like a computer and something else. And I bought this trailer that I still own to today. It's in my driveway. I paid $1,200 for it. And I pulled this trailer around to all these, and I didn't have money to even wrap it yet. So I took the screws out of the side and put a yard sign and put the screws through the yard sign and it held. So I had this sign that was, not very big at all that said Griffin Air on the side. And yeah, you got to start somewhere. So
that's right. I ran service out of my Toyota Corolla for the first 9 months, in business. So put a little wrap on the back windshield. It was supposed to be perforated, but I think because the back window is such at a tilt, you still really couldn't see out it. So I think the perforated wraps only work well when it's like completely flat.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, because if it's
Yeah.
tilted, you're
Yeah.
not seeing through it. Yeah, interesting. I remember the first big job that I sold, I had to go borrow a hammer drill from someone because I didn't have enough money to even buy a hammer drill yet, and I borrowed theirs and to get the job done. You know.
Same.
So,
I had to borrow a vacuum pump. You know.
yeah, yeah. I've never told this before. I'm about to tell something that I've never told anyone, but because I was embarrassed by it for the longest time. But I also bought a bathroom scale for my refrigerant, and I would stand. It wouldn't pick up the refrigerant tank very well, so I would stand on the scale, and it'd be like 500 pounds. What I weigh, and then I would hold the scale, and then that's how I would weigh the tank.
You were the tear.
Huh?
You were the tear, like the tear out button. It was
Yeah.
you. It was you.
So they're not as accurate, and I would have to. I would always round, in their favor because I knew it wasn't very accurate. But yeah, I mean, I've never told that before, but yeah, that's what I did. So I wouldn't pull it out in front of the customer, obviously, but
Yeah, you want to do that in your truck, probably.
yeah. I think it wasn't very long. I only had to do that on a couple jobs, but it still was. It was burned in my brain that I had to do that, which is crazy. So, well, let's move forward a little bit because I do want to talk a little bit more about what you're doing on YouTube. Because I know you kind of touched on it, but it's unique what you're doing. It's I don't know of anyone else that's doing it quite like the way you're doing it. So I don't know, kind of maybe speak to that and what it's all about.
Well, I feel like I was a lot more gung ho before I started my own company. Just to be completely honest, I really thought that there was more of a market for the DIYer, consumer out there with YouTube, and what better. I know a lot of the guys out there that have a lot of following and stuff really don't know the trade all that well in some instances.
Not mentioning any names.
Yeah, I'm not. So I felt like that was maybe a good space to move into. But I really promoted the DIY service, and I'm here to help. I never got any calls or very few messages and stuff like that. So after there wasn't really a market for that, also, I don't, the other listeners don't know, my daughter was born, got a young baby, 1-year-old girl. I think that also inspired me a bit to start the company too. So I share all of that just to kind of put you in where I was before I started the business. And the HVAC Double Agent thing it didn't pan out the way I envisioned it. I'll leave it like that.
Yeah. I don't think it ever does. I don't even know that my business is panning out. It's never as good as you. Oh shoot, I just put the wrong was supposed to say check out Luke's business, and it didn't copy and paste correctly here. Sorry folks. Check out Luke's business. That's live TV for you.
So I will tell you, as far as monetizing it, it didn't work out. But there's tons of my videos that have a lot of views. For instance, like how to clean a pressure switch. I've had people comment like, "Dude, you just saved me $500 and stuff like that on there." So that it's happening. Just monetizing it is the main thing.
Yeah. I think that's part of the trick too. Yeah. The never-ending battle, I feel like. So, and then I don't know if you've experienced this, but I get people that will approach me and they want me to, talk about their product or their company, but essentially do it for free. Like they don't really, you know, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like some companies or people just don't understand that, you know, if somebody's watching us right now, they at least have some interest in the HVAC industry in some way, whether it's they're in it, whether it's they have spent a lot of money on a heating and air system and they just want to understand it better, or whatever the reason is. But they you know, they're, especially if you have an HVAC product, that's your audience. The people watching that video, that's your audience. And I just never understand, you know, they would rather put a billboard on the side of the road and have all these people look at the billboard when 98 out of 100 of them aren't going to buy their product anyway. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on that.
Right.
So
yeah, I think it comes down to, you know, how can you provide for your family and do it in a way that serves
Yep.
the man upstairs.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. I've got a few other questions. Captain Jack says, which website platforms do you prefer customers to leave a phenomenal reviewed HVAC install? Google, Yelp, Facebook, your website, etc. I'll let you answer that first.
Google's always the creme of the creme, for sure.
Yeah.
At some point for me, it will be Facebook or you know, Yelp or something else. But for now, it's Google.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Google's where a lot of people, if they're searching for something, that's where they're going to go. So that's obvious. But the other thing I've noticed, I've learned over the years, especially with websites like Yelp, even websites like the Better Business Bureau, they hold more weight in some markets versus others. So like where I live, nobody really knows or cares what Nate is. No offense, right? It obviously holds weight where you are.
Same here.
They also, I'm not saying they never check the Better Business Bureau, but I remember a friend of mine told me he paid all this money and he got accredited and he jumped through all these hoops. And he's like, I don't get any more calls from that. Like, you know, but then I hear other people saying in other parts of the country that websites like that hold a lot of weight, you know, and maybe what sector of the, you know, what business you have might play a role in that too. Like a restaurant, you might care more about Yelp than, you know, than we do, you know. So
yeah, I actually had a customer ask me, why aren't you on the Better Business Bureau at the beginning of this year? Or she said, why do you have an A- or something maybe? But I immediately, after I left that call, I signed up. I spent the $800 or whatever it was. And
yeah,
I'm accredited.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. So how does that work? You paid to get accredited and now you have an A+ rating?
I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I wasn't rated at all. I don't know. Because I think the reason I have an A- is actually because I've only been in business like a year. Once you get to 2 years, you can get the plus or something.
I do have so I've talked about this on my YouTube before. I do hate these websites, and I'm not saying Better Business Bureau is one of them. So don't be suing me. But there are websites, not mentioning any names, wink. There are websites that you can pay to be represented better on that website. And to me, that's just not cool. Like it's not a third party opinion anymore. The companies that can spend the more money can be represented better on those websites.
Well, they can still be represented better on even larger platforms like Google if they have big, deep pockets to manage reviews and whatnot, PR and what have you.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah, I think that most heating and air companies and plumbing companies, electrical plumbing companies, if they're just transparent and honest, they're gonna get a long way. Like, just being honest. If you messed up, just say, hey. I mean, I do remember my first ever bad review that a guy left for us on Google. I called him, like, immediately it came through, and I called him, and I said, hey, I saw the review you left. I wanted to see if there's anything I can do to make you happy enough to take that review down. I'm being transparent and honest, right? And Mr. Wade was his name. Mr. Wade's like, yeah, Josh, I left you a review. I left you a message the other day and no one ever called me back. And I'm like, I'm over there on the other end of the phone thinking, you didn't leave me a message. I would have returned it. But instead of saying that, I'm like, okay, what do we got to do? And that guy he bought a mini split from me a week later. And then he ended up buying a 7.5 ton commercial unit for his business like a year or two after that. And I was able to turn that bad review around. And like I said, I think just being transparent and honest. I think some people are not going to be willing to take that review down and still buy a mini split from you, but maybe just respond to them and just say, hey, I did drop the ball, or I didn't drop the ball here. I feel like this is the way I saw that situation, but I'm sorry you weren't happy. Just being transparent and honest, I think would get a lot of these folks a long way.
Transparency is one of the core values at my company, for sure. That's, must do what we're going to say, or must do what we say we're going to do. That's why I wear these meta glasses a lot, is so I can show people, what I'm doing throughout the call and help educate them too about, when is the right time to maybe make the repairs, and we can have video records of, hey, this is what it looked like last time. This is what it was measuring last time. And now it's at this. So
yeah,
seems to work out so far.
Yeah. Well, obviously, with the YouTube channel and everything, you're more transparent than the average bear. So
right.
Jack says, is Luke also a Daikin R32 preference guy like Josh, or is he on the 410A and now 454B side of the house preferred equipment?
So I will say R32 is the better refrigerant. It's not a blend, right, Josh?
Correct. Yep.
I am when it comes to brand, my preferences are usually Carrier for the higher end stuff, American Standard, Amana, or Linux for more middle of the road, lower tier stuff. So everybody that I just mentioned is R454B except Amana. So I'm not a diehard either way. Like we kind of alluded to earlier, brand really does not matter. And if you give me the cheapest system out there and I install it with my crew, then it's probably going to operate just fine. But sometimes if you give the chuck in the truck or the amateur, sometimes even the huge company can still have the amateur because they're understaffed. So
yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah, interesting.
Tough out there.
Yeah, I didn't even know what your answer was going to be to that, so that's interesting. Let's see, what is? Well, I'll ask that in a minute. What are some horror stories that you've experienced? You got any funny horror stories you can share with us?
Well, unrelated to HVAC, actually. Yesterday on my lunch break, it's a little slow. I snuck out on the disc golf course, and my cousin was out there with me, and I was throwing a frisbee to him, warming up, and ripped one, and we were kind of in between some trees, and I went to kind of like run to see if it was gonna hit him, and there's a tree right there, and I freaking ran right into the tree. Like, I don't know if you can see my hands a little.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So that was a horror story yesterday. It was awful.
Apparently.
It was. Luckily, I wasn't going full speed. You know, I only took like 2 steps, like fast. But
Yeah.
that was not good.
So disc golf is more dangerous than I thought it would.
Yes, it is a
Than I thought
contact
it was.
sport, apparently.
Yeah. What does a day look like for you these days when you're? Because I know you have a unique business model. You have more partners than you do employees at the moment, anyway.
Correct.
So it's an interesting. I don't know anyone in my area that does it the way you guys do it down there. So
Right. So my day typically looks like, well, tomorrow, Wednesday, will be like networking from 7:30 to 9. Usually I try to schedule a maintenance call in the morning. So usually we'll hit one maintenance, sometimes 2, and then hopefully a call has came in by then. Usually try to get a service call in the afternoon if weather's cooperating, or try to fill the board with the previous day's repair or something, follow up, something like that. But then, there's the create video side of it. There's the father side of it, the church side of it, the soccer game side of it. Spend time with the family, Easter with the family this past weekend.
yeah.
Got a big family. I'm the youngest of 5 kids.
Oh, nice.
So really, every week's different. I try to do the time block stuff. Like, I need to do this many hours of each thing per week, and it gets all mumbled around, but try to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. How far are you actually from Dallas? Like, are you considered in the city or?
Yeah, so Carrollton is where my business is out of. It is a suburb. It actually touches part of Dallas, Dallas proper, you would say.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of little suburbs like Carrollton, Plano, Frisco, are a lot of large Farmers Branch, Louisville, Highland Village, Highland Park. There's a lot of little pockets, I guess, within the Metroplex.
Yeah. Well, I feel like Texas is, I always have this, do I?
Exploding right now. Like, it's,
Yeah.
our population is like through the roof in the past 4 years.
Yeah. I went to Houston a couple years ago, and then again last year, and the area of Houston I was in on the northwest side of it, Cypress area, had just blew up in just the couple years that I was gone. Like, I wasn't there. Because the hotel I originally stayed in, there was like a gym there, and then maybe a grocery store. But then I came back those 2 years later, and there were like restaurant. It was like a pile of stuff and people everywhere. So I don't know if.
So yeah, Houston. I'm pretty sure Houston is like the 4th most populated city in America, possibly. Don't hold me to that. Fact check me on that. But now it's basically this, gargantuous triangle from Dallas, Austin, Houston, that, is making almost like a super metroplex is what they're calling it. So
You were right. Number 4. You have a very good memory. Yeah, I think it's just nuts. I never understand these things, though. Unless they're including the surrounding areas, because so I lived in Richmond, Virginia for a while, and Richmond is in the actual city limits is not that big. But in the the surrounding areas, the suburbs of the city, I mean, it's just blowing up. They're just building on top of buildings. I mean, it's just blowing up. So when they say a population of a city, are they talking about actually in city limits, or are they including the surrounding areas? And if so, I just never understand quite how they do all that.
Well, it has to be the proper, because like I'm pretty sure my town, Carrollton, has like, I don't know, 700,000 or something. So it can't be
Goodness.
counted in that, and maybe that's too many. I don't know. But
Well, no, that's crazy.
but so it can't be. You know what I'm saying? It can't be counted in our population and Dallas's to include the neighboring cities.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
So it says your population is 132,000 in
Okay, I was
Carrollton,
gonna say,
which is
100.
still huge though, because the entire population of Richmond is 300,000. So, and I feel like Richmond's it's not a huge city, but it's decent size. So, but it's apparently nothing compared to where you live.
Yeah, so the air conditioning market here is so saturated, Josh. Like you could drive down the street and you could see 20 different trucks one day and see 20 completely different trucks the next day. Now the big
Yeah.
guys you'll see this the same day all the time, but you'll still see 20 new ones, every commute.
What's that like? I mean, you're always trying to, because I know like in my area, I was always trying to be different than the next guy, but there's really only about 4 companies in our close knit area. And then if you were to include the surrounding counties, I mean, on any given day, I might have been bidding against I don't know, 20 companies total if every single company in the area came there.
Yeah, I mean, the industry is so tarnished, and I feel like the level of expertise, for everybody who says they do air conditioning is, you know, the bar is pretty low, So I feel like eventually they're going to customers are going to get burned by one of the the other guys. We'll call them the other guys out there. Um, and then what would be recycled in to me. And my hope is my service is so different and so, wow service is what I always try to promote, that there's no question that they're going to choose somebody else or think about calling anybody else. And that's the
Yeah.
relationships, I'm trying to build.
Yeah. Yeah. What an interesting, it's just weird how it's that way in your area. Meanwhile, I helped a lady on our website a few weeks ago, and she was in an area in Utah, and she had literally had 2 companies. So if you didn't like what this one said, then let's hope you like the other one, because
Yeah, so that's interesting, because I thought about like being a traveling sub, even like, and I think South Carolina may be the only other state that actually reciprocates with Texas as far as the license is concerned. But I don't know.
which is so
That's
weird. That's
service
all.
work. Yeah,
All that's weird too.
yeah, that is stuff. That's weird stuff to me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like in
I mean,
Chicago, you don't need any license. It's
yeah.
crazy. It's so different all over the nation. And then
Yeah.
in California, you need permits, manual Ds, blower door tests, duct blasters. It's
Yeah. Yeah, it's just weird. Well, but just even from the licensing standpoint, so I hold a master license in Virginia, and we'll have states that are literally like you just described. So there's Oklahoma that's right there at Texas, or what's the
Louisiana.
Louisiana right there to the
Nope.
east of it. Nope, you got to travel 4 states over for that license to be recognized again. I mean, that's just nuts.
Yeah. That'll probably connect some political dots somewhere, though. I
Oh,
would
that's
imagine.
true. I didn't think of that. Yeah, that's probably true. But even still, I mean, you would think like Chicago's in a more liberal state that I don't know. I always think of licensing as, it's another tax, just like if you're going to buy a fishing license. And you would think a place like that would probably have more, permits, licenses, and so on, like California is.
Right.
But then obviously it's not that way. So it's just always interesting to me. Maybe the climate plays a little role in that too. Who knows? But um just a little less. Yeah. um yeah, I think that's interesting. Have you tried doing any of that? You said something about going on the road and being a consultant. I know there are guys out there that do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think if
Um
the opportunity presented itself, somebody's like, "Hey, nobody can fix this for me. Come help, please." It would be an expensive service call, but yeah, absolutely, I would travel
Yeah,
to
I wish
help.
I'd have known you a couple years ago. I had these people contact me, and they sent me this report, and I talked about it on my live show, and they were not happy that I talked. And I'm like, you sent a YouTuber, and so they had this building scientist guy or heat and air. I don't know what he was, but I didn't like some of the things he was saying on his report, and I just talked about that, and they were not happy that I talked about it on my live show. I didn't say their names or anything,
Wow.
and so anyway, that was but they were in Dallas, which is why I bring that up. So I kind of wish I'd have known you back then.
Yeah.
Um, Captain Jack says, how soon do you see geothermal being mainstream in the future HVAC? 5, 10, or 20 years?
Oof. Man, I think with the cost of geothermal and the, I mean, you like in Chicago, geothermal is basically impossible. But I mean, there's a huge lake, so I don't know.
I think you hit the nail on the head. The answer is never.
Yeah.
Unless they ever come out with budget friendly options for it, it's just not going to happen. So unless if they figure out a way when they're digging the footers for a house, bury the loops then and kind of include it some way, somehow on that front, maybe make it a little more budget friendly. But
Or like if you're drilling piers, maybe you have another one that goes down with the loop like simultaneously. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but they've already got these other technologies that are coming that they're using in Europe, more air to water type stuff, and the COP is so high on them. They're so efficient, and you don't have to bury loops. I just don't think geothermal will ever become mainstream, but I could be wrong, but we'll see. Yeah. Brian says tax incentives keep geo running. Yeah. So I remember companies that were like, I know a specific company in my area that when they started their business when when Obama was in office, he had this thing where you could basically get
the
$20 grand.
$2,500 tax credit. Yeah, you install this matchup, this model number, this coil, this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was like some huge incentives, and it was basically cutting the cost in half to put these systems in. And then when that went away, last I heard he was still in business, but it wasn't like it was. Like he was kind of rolling in it there for a while from a business standpoint. So air to water is here. I have one and looking at converting a church. Oh, okay. Very cool. I know Daikin's relaunching. I say relaunching because they tried to launch it years ago, but they're relaunching the Altherma this year, and they're not the only ones. I mean, everyone by AHR of next year, I've been told. Clifton Beck from the ESCO Institute told me that he's heard that all the major brands are going to come out with a monoblock system of some kind. So it's definitely
I'm talking about monoblock. That's what I was about to ask.
Yeah. Go. Were you going to add something?
No, you said monoblock.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I think the writing is on the wall on that standpoint. But what I'm excited to see with all that stuff is, when we do have change outs, what that'll look like. Because as you said, there's still going to be chucking of trucks that we're all bidding against, and they're gonna go with whatever the least expensive way of getting by is. And so what is that going to look like? Are they, and I've also been told they will have mini split options too. So, or that at least it's possible. So it'll be really interesting to see how all that shakes out. What do you think the biggest misconception is in our industry?
That
put you on the spot?
No, that everything is the same. That his 13 SEER is the same as his 13 SEER. So much can be different, and it's so Greek that the probability of being able to capture it all and explain it in a way that makes sense for somebody to invest the extra. Just it all has to align perfectly for they have to want it. It all just has to align perfectly.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because you said something earlier where you were talking about all these different brands and how as long as it's installed right by your company that they should be fine. And I think that's true on a lot of levels, but I think there's also this misnomer in our industry where a lot of guys will say, oh, it's all the same stuff, just different stickers. It's all the same stuff, different color paint. And I don't subscribe to that. I think that there are some that are better than others. There were some brands that we just would not put in at our company, even if the customer said to me, that's what I want. And if you want to bid, that's what I want, I would have to say no.
Yeah.
I'd have to walk away.
There's a couple of those for me too.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you want to share them? I don't want to get in trouble.
One starts with a G.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Mine, the one brand that I try not to pick too many fights, because everybody does have their own preferences, and I get that. But I was done dirty enough times by Nordon or Nortec that they're the only brand that I call out on my YouTube channel because they did me dirty multiple times. They would not honor warranties, and I had to bite the bullet. And I said, that's the only company I won't hold back on. I'll go toe to toe with anybody that loves them, because they did me dirty enough times. So, Brian says highest end equipment expires at warranty end. Sale of house hard for me to sell unless you are staying forever or stupid rich.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Yeah. Do y'all have down in Dallas? Do y'all have higher end stuff sold at all?
Oh yeah, like higher end equipment.
Yeah,
for sure. No, I'm a huge believer in variable speed technology. Even two-stage is fantastic, especially communicating two-stage stuff. It truly is a different level of comfort. There's a lot of techs that hate on higher stage, higher SEER, higher end equipment, and I always ask them when I hear them talking about it, have you ever lived with it? Like, have you put one in your home? And then most of the time it's no, because once you live with it, man, it's a different kind of comfort. It's a cold, crispy air. It's nice, subtle heat. It doesn't just blast on. I mean, it's nice. You get what you pay for if it's installed properly.
I like that. Have you ever lived in a house that had it? That's
yeah.
Because I bet their answer is no. But a lot of guys, they just don't want to learn it. They that's really they'll pick out other reasons too. Oh well, I think it's just sales tactics. That they'll never get their money out of it.
Well, okay. So, for example, at my old large company that I worked for, when they have a used car salesman who has no HVAC experience and he's trying to sell somebody a $30,000, $40,000 system, and he has no idea if it'll work in that application, what ductwork modifications need to be done, where the drain lines go, if the ducts, are even attached. He has no idea. That's what was next to me, and that lit a fire under me.
Yeah. Yep. Brian says, have you ever had to wait 3 months for a motor? I actually think that's a valid point, but even the cheap stuff has ECM motors now. So you know.
And yes, Brian, I have actually. Yes, unfortunately I have. Not 3 months, but at least 2 or 3 weeks. And they said it was going to be 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the argument, and I think that's a valid argument. I actually do. Years ago, I used to be able to keep 2 indoor motors on my truck, a 120 volt and a 240 volt multi-speeds, and then I could keep 2 outdoor motors on my truck, 825 and 1075 RPMs, and I could get most customers years ago back up and rolling if they had a failed motor with those options. But what I would argue against what Brian just said, assuming it's not under warranty, if it's under warranty, then that's a valid argument. But if it's not under warranty, there are now motors that are universal that you can program, and you tell it what brand you're installing it in, and you can keep it on your truck, and you can have them back up and going within, an hour of taking the service call. So,
well, I feel like you could also pull out the housing and hardwire, a blower in that situation too. If my customer's 3 months without comfort, I'm figuring out a way to get that thing going.
Yeah. So I definitely could see both sides of that argument. It's just always I like what you said, when a lot of the guys that will argue against it, they've never lived in a home with it. They don't know how great it is, and they don't know how to work on it, and they don't want to. So
yeah, well, I'll tell you this. Like, for instance, I've never took time in my career to just dive into trains communicating, like the XV or whatever they're. So when people ask me about, I hate it, because I'll admit that I'm uneducated about the highest end level. I've never had the desire to learn it. Now, American Standard, which is the same stuff, I like that. I've learned that some, but it's different still.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we're going to be wrapping up here shortly, but those of you that are in the chat, let's do something in just a moment. Luke, I'm going to, whenever I have a guest, I ask them the same question, and I'll be excited to hear what your answer is as someone that's played the double agent side. But those of you in the chat, we all know there's some bad apples in our trade. We know there's some heating and air plumbers and electricians out there that make us all look bad. If you know a good apple in your area, please share the name of the company and where they're located in the chat. You never know, you might be able to send some love their way and some business their way as well. So that said, last question of the night, Luke, and that is, if your closest family member, not your dad, because he's in heating and air too, but your closest family member that does not live with you called you tomorrow and said, hey, I'm in the market for a heating and air system. What advice do you have for me? What's the advice you'd give that family member?
Does he? Gosh, there's so much to unpack there, but I would say it really comes down to, do you have a good feeling that he knows what he's doing? I would say ask the right questions to really make sure he's on his toes and knows what he's doing.
Yeah. But how would they do that if they don't know, what do you think of that?
Or get me involved.
Get you involved.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Oh, and I don't think we did that earlier. If somebody is in the Dallas, Fort Worth, Carrollton area, what's the name of your company and how can they find you?
Heat and Air Gurus. That's GURUS. And gurusair.com is the website.
Chat again.
I'm also I got a YouTube channel over there as well. HVAC Double Agent is my other DIY kind of friendly channel.
Yeah, HVAC Double Agent, right?
Yep.
Well, cool. Make sure you subscribe to Luke's channel, and
Please do. Yes.
and he like you say, if you're in the Dallas, Fort Worth, Carrollton areas, make sure you give Heat and Air Gurus. I always get confused because your website is Gurus Air, so I always want to call it Gurus Air. And
yeah.
So
the domain wasn't available, Josh. Okay.
Oh, well, I'm not hammering you. I'm just saying that's why I always pause and I'm always like Heating and Air Guru or Heat and Air Gurus. But good enough.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, those of you that joined us in the chat, I do appreciate all of you guys. This was fun. Luke, any parting words?
No, just appreciate all of you guys interacting with us tonight. This is fun. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this was a good one for sure. I had a good time. So, yeah, the rest of you, I'll be back next Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. In the meantime, make it a great week. Take care.